The White Bear Area Chamber of Commerce and On Location TV19 are proud to present Your Business Matters, dedicated to your business needs. The White Bear Area Chamber is a nonprofit business organization serving as an advocate for the White Bear area and its business community. Now here is the Executive Director of the White Bear Area Chamber and the host of Your Business Matters, Tom Snell.
Welcome to Your Business Matters, brought to you by the White Bear Area Chamber of Commerce. Each month we interview community leaders and local business owners so you can be informed about the developments in our community. Today I'm pleased to welcome Shyle Nelson, the Senior Loan Officer with TCM Certified Development Company. TCM Certified Development Company has helped businesses in the White Bear area secure millions of dollars in small business administrative loan programs. You will learn about several of these specialty small business loan programs today on Your Business Matters. Thank you for joining us today, Shyle, on our program.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
And I want to start out by asking you, what does TCM stand for?
Sure. TCM stands for Twin Cities Metro Certified Development Company.
Okay.
And so when we first started business about 25 years ago, we served just 6 counties in the Twin Cities.
And those are?
All the counties except Anoka County, and this is going back 25 years ago.
Okay.
And what the U.S. Small Business Administration had done about probably 12 years ago now is they expanded the territories which CDCs could operate. So we went from just 6 counties to actually all 85 counties in the state.
Oh, so you can serve businesses all over the state of Minnesota then?
Exactly. We actually have 9 bordering counties in western Wisconsin as well.
Oh, okay.
So that's our footprint expanded greatly. So we started out as Twin Cities Metro,
Sure.
but we've really become known as TCM, just to kind of incorporate some of the outstate communities as well.
Okay. Now, I want to know, what is a certified development company, first of all, and kind of what differences there are for going to a certified development company to get information about loan programs, and why not just go to a bank?
Yep, good point. TCM it's a very unique product. It's called an SBA 504 loan program, and it's administered by the federal government.
Okay.
And there's about 250 CDCs throughout the country. There's 5 in Minnesota. And our borrowers primarily come through the banks, but on some occasions, I would say about 10 to 20% of the time, the actual small business owner will contact us directly. Either maybe we had done a deal for them in the past, or maybe they switched banks, and during that transition from bank A to B, they decided to contact us because they knew they were doing maybe a real estate project. So.
And you mentioned that sometimes banks send people to you.
Absolutely, it's a partnership program.
Oh, it is.
So it is.
So you're not competing against the financial service industry or the bank?
No, not at all. We complement each other. So without the banks, we don't exist. We need a first mortgage lender on every project or a bank. We've also done a few deals with some credit unions, not many, but we've done a few. There's always got to be we call it a third-party lender, which is doing part of the financing. And we come in a subordinate position behind that bank.
And I want to get back a little bit to exactly what a certified development company. You said that they administer these small business loans. Does this mean that, for example, you might deal with businesses that can't get traditional bank loans? Is that what you mean by that?
Sometimes. So, in the past, it was always known, SBA was known as kind of the lender of last resort. We'd come in and help someone that got turned down by 6 banks, and then we'd kind of come along and do that deal along with a bank, and it'd be subsidized by the SBA. In other words, it would either be a guarantee on the bank loan, or with our program, it's more of a bond that's financed in a subordinate or second mortgage position behind the bank's first mortgage.
And what is a second mortgage position? What does that mean?
Yeah, so a typical deal, let's just say it's a $2 million real estate either purchase or construction deal for an owner-occupied business. So let's just say a dentist wanted to go build a building, or a restaurant owner. We really lend to all industries, and the project was $2 million. In that scenario, the bank would loan $1 million, and they would have a first mortgage on the property. So if the loan went bad, they would be only owed $1 million, but they would have a first mortgage position on that piece of real estate. So they're pretty well protected. Their loan to value would just be 50% in that case. We come in behind the bank up to 40% of the project in basically a 90% loan to value position. So we do, in that case, it would be an $800,000 second mortgage behind the bank, and then that third, the bank or the business owner, or there'd be another loan program that would fund that $200,000 piece.
Now, diverging a little bit from what you've mentioned, do you do any help for small business? Let's say that they get turned down by 6 banks, like you mentioned, but they want to get a loan. Maybe part of the problem is they didn't develop a business plan that was that would appeal to a certain financial institution. Right. Have you done anything, or do you refer people to other entities that can help a business develop a business plan so that they can then maybe get the SBA loans or other opportunities to bring in financial resources?
Yeah, great question. We get that quite a bit, actually, and there's depending on the situation there, if they've literally been turned down by half a dozen banks, we got to find out why. What's going on here? If they have poor credit, did they have some recent bankruptcies? What was the reason for the turn down? If it was simply more of a communication thing, maybe they didn't write a clear, concise business plan and they didn't really know how to approach that bank to ask for a loan. We'll do anything from refer them to a group like SCORE, which is the Service Corps of Retired Executives through the SBA.
Yes.
And they can, these business owners can receive financial assistance without fees and help them write business plans and get all sorts of information. So in some cases, we need them to actually focus on, let's start with a business plan and make sure the what you're asking your bank for is clearly communicated through a business plan. Okay. So that may be in some cases. Other cases, there may be an industry issue. Maybe some banks just say no to any one industry. A typical one might be a restaurant. Obviously, the failure rate might be a little higher in that industry versus the professional services. So, but we've got banks that we know, because we deal with all the banks through the Twin Cities, that don't get scared with a startup restaurant. I've got 3 I'm working on now. So we know which banks might be a little more likely to finance a restaurant. Having said that, it's got to still meet some parameters, obviously.
So not all banks are just uniform when it comes to loaning money to a business. They have different areas of expertise and different options available.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some banks tend to lend within a pretty tight box. If it doesn't meet these parameters, they kick it out right away, which can be good, because then at least that borrower knows, I'm not going to spend 6 weeks working with this bank. We know it's not going to work. Yep. And where other banks are a little more probably creative, a little more flexible, and they are willing to try to figure out a way to make a deal work. So we're in tune with that. We work with, on average, we do about 100 deals a year. And last year, I think we worked with close to 50 different banks within those 100 loans.
And we'll get into that a little bit, because that's really interesting. The other thing I want to find out about are the various loan programs. There's comments that I've heard are that if you want to get an SBA loan, you're going to have to want like $1 million or a large amount of money. If you're a smaller entrepreneur or a micro business, there's really nothing there for you. And I want you to kind of respond to that issue. If you don't, and then just kind of go through the different types of loan programs that are actually available that your organization can help. Okay, excellent.
In terms of the smaller business owner that only needs $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, the program that fits best for those needs would be the SBA Express Loan Program. Okay. And that's a more simplified process. TCM is not involved in those. We're typically a real estate lender or a large equipment lender. So we really don't do working capital loans or startups or refinance. We're more involved with capital acquisition of things like real estate and equipment. So on those smaller needs, it's an SBA Express loan. And that product allows the banks to get a guarantee on a portion of the loan, depending on the size. Okay. And those loans can be anything, like I said, 0 to on up to about $350,000 is the maximum for an express loan. And it's a more simplified process. And that's a federal loan program, just like 504. It's under the U.S. Small Business Administration. Again, it's important to find the banks that are interested in lending the money to these smaller users. Sometimes you get a loan officer that, if their annual number they need to hit to make some pretty good commissions, might be $12 to $15 million a year in volume. You know, doing a $20,000 loan is really not going to do much for that.
But there are
other banks, absolutely. Other banks see the value in helping that real small guy, and they're going to grow with them.
Do you think that there's enough information out to micro businesses about that loan program, or is this something that more small businesses should know about?
You know, they should. SBA does a fairly good job of marketing it to the banks, and so most people seem to know that I run across have heard of it before. Once in a while you hear of someone that has not heard of it, or they're talking to a banker that maybe hasn't done one before and they don't know a lot about it.
Sure.
They've just heard the term.
Yeah.
Where other banks, again, and there's a list that SBA publishes every year, the top SBA lenders, and a lot of these are even small community banks that are doing 50, 60 SBA 7A loans or SBA Express loans a year, and they might be a very small community bank.
So we've got the SBA Express loans. What are some of the other options that are available through the SBA that your organization might deal with, or just the banks deal with?
Sure. So it starts with probably that Express program. Again, those are the smallest, and it goes on to the SBA 7A Guarantee Program, which the loan size can again start at zero because it can cover all the low ones, but it can go all the way up to $5 million, and it's a guarantee on a bank loan. So if it was I'll just say a $2 million SBA 7A loan, let's say it was to buy a business and to include some working capital. And it was a $2 million loan, the bank would receive a 75% federal government guarantee on that. So they're guaranteed $1.5 million of that $2 million. So their risk is $500,000.
That takes a lot of the risk out.
Absolutely. So the key there is we got to make sure it's set up so SBA would approve it. We're still trying to do good deals. SBA is trying to make sure we're lending to small businesses that have a sound repayment history. That's probably the #1 credit criteria. If it's a startup, it's hard to identify that. It's all through projections, but still, we help those businesses. Again, back to the business plans, we help them with that and get them the resources that they can help. We don't actually write business plans. We don't do 7A lending. We don't do express lending. Our staff just knows a lot about it. Most of our staff members either ran SBA departments at banks, or were working for banks, or I've even been a user of an SBA program 25 years ago. So you just know about these programs, and it's our job to find the right fit for the business owner.
Now, are there other SBA loan programs that you folks are involved in other than the ones that you've mentioned?
No, we strictly have a niche, which is SBA 504 lending. And so that's all we do. And again, we'll help people with, okay, this sounds like an express loan. You're better off doing this program. And a lot of times we'll do a combination. We'll do a 504 on a small building maybe, and then we'll follow up with the bank will do a 7A loan for some working capital. Now,
if I'm a small business owner and I want to get a 504 loan program, for example, and I don't want, does the loan have to be tied to something that is substantial, that if you don't pay it back, you're going to you're going to get a loan for equipment, or you're going to get a loan for a building? Does it count towards, I need money to help pay my staff?
Sure, yeah.
I mean,
that's
sure
a good question.
That.
Oh, we get all that, yeah. There's not a day that goes by where we don't get, hey, can I use my funds for this? And so, and that's a valid question. So if there's that need, we call it a companion situation, where we'll do a 504 loan for the fixed assets, which would be real estate and equipment, and then the companion loan being like an SBA Express or an SBA 7A guarantee loan to help with all those working capital needs, paying salaries, startup prepaid kind of expenses to either start a business or advertising expenses, anything like that. Within what a business needs, there's going to be an SBA program that can fit it. It's either going to be that guarantee program, which again is Express or 7A, or it's going to be the 504 for more of the fixed assets.
Great.
So we try to help create that structure for each business owner. Whether we're lending the money or not, we try to help people with that scenario.
Now, I want to get a little bit of history. You mentioned that your development company has been around for 25 years.
Yes, it has been. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary this summer. So we actually, the company was an interesting story on the start of it. Bob Heck was our founder, and he privatized this process of 504 lending. It was handled at the state level, and he carved it out and said, look, I think we can be more efficient if we're a private nonprofit entity with banks as our partners. So he started it in 1990 and grew from there, and we've now got about 850 loans in our portfolio. Close to 400 million is the size.
400 million.
Yeah, and we just have 12 employees. We tend to run pretty lean and efficient.
You're a lean operation.
We are. We tend to hustle and get things done there. and we have a very seasoned staff. I've got 25-year history in SBA, a user of the program, working at a bank, and now I was a board member at TC. I'm now an employee, and I'm actually not the most seasoned person there. We've got, I think, 3 or 4 that are ahead of me.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have any, can you give me a history of a couple of businesses that you help that have expanded in our community that you can kind of hang a hat on as being real success stories?
Yeah, you know, we lend throughout the state of Minnesota, and it's all over, I'd have to think. So Washington and Ramsey County, yes, we've helped many companies. In terms of numbers of jobs, it's usually, I'd say in the last 10 years, it's more of the restaurant type businesses or retail businesses where there's a lot of employment there. Yeah, a few manufacturing deals within that we've done. So it just depends on what industry, but yeah, we've helped many. I don't know if I should necessarily give names at this point.
I got you.
But you know, we're pretty confidential.
Can you say that there's like a success story where you worked with maybe a manufacturing company or a restaurant and they expanded to you know, X percent?
Yeah, actually, well,
venue,
absolutely.
without naming any names.
Well, I just went to his open house. A business in Hugo was just an acquisition. The business was struggling a little bit, and we did a deal for the owner to actually buy the building with a 504 loan. A 7A loan was used to buy the business. So we actually retained about a dozen jobs in that situation. And now in the last 2 years, I think he's added about another 7 jobs.
That's great.
So yeah,
That's
it's a small little manufacturer, kind of a niche manufacturer, job shop. And that company had decreasing revenues, and he bought it, and he's growing it, and very successful. So not only did we add jobs, we retained those jobs that were in the
I think that's real. I think it's a real important venue because you're showing how a collaborative effort with the private sector can really be a generator of jobs and revenue in our community.
Absolutely. No, that's there's actually a job requirement with the 504 program.
Oh, there is?
Yes, we do need to show that a retention or creation of a certain amount of jobs, depending on the industry, with the funds. And that's actually true of a lot of the other programs we work with too. Kind of that example of that $2 million project where we need $200,000 of equity injected into that. Sometimes we'll go to some other loan programs to fund that $200,000 or a portion of it, depending on the community and what might be available. There's some Minnesota investment funds that I recently used on a project.
What are those?
Those are funds, I call it a kind of a gap financing, funds that are can come in a subordinate position even behind our loan. So it's banks in first position, SBA's in second. And then in third position is this Minnesota Investment Funds, which has in this case it was about a $400,000 loan for some warehouse racking. Yeah. And $200,000 of that loan is actually forgivable if they create enough jobs over the next 5 years.
So is this loan directly related to creating jobs for certain types of businesses? Yeah,
definitely a job creation, not necessarily by industry, just job creation in general. But it's very specific with the types of jobs that might be created in terms of wages for those jobs. And so if you meet the criteria and 5 years has passed, they'll forgive $200 of that $400,000 loan.
Really?
So that's one of the programs I've recently used. There's also an MCCD loan program that is not actually a forgiveness piece to it, but it's a low interest rate. It's around a 4% loan that's also in third position. And there's also tax increment financing. It's a little less common now, but through TIF, we can sometimes if it's upfront TIF, we'll count that as equity. I recently have done a deal where large, about $7 million project, and the owner didn't have to write a check because the TIF provided that.
Now, if somebody is interested in getting a hold of your company to find out about some of these options, whether it be the loan program through the state of Minnesota, 504 loan programs, SBA programs that you may not be directly involved with but can point people in the right direction, who would they contact?
You know, I always say to start with, probably talk to your banker because most people have a banker. If that banker maybe isn't versed in some of these programs, certainly you can contact me. Sometimes your accountant may know. I deal with a lot of accountants and attorneys as well.
Okay.
But yeah, call me or check our website, 504lending.com. You can contact me if you'd like. Again, we have a very seasoned staff. We should be able to point you in the right direction. So.
I know that people will get your email address, but could you give me your telephone number?
Oh, absolutely.
If you don't mind sharing that?
No, absolutely. It is 651-481-8081, extension 16. And my cell number is 612-801-9013.
Okay.
And my email address is Sheil, SHEIL.Nelson@tcmcdc.com.
And you're here to help our business community grow and thrive.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciated this interview.
Thanks,
and
Tom.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Now I have a quick announcement about a very important event coming up on Tuesday, September 29th. The White Bear Area Chamber has a special event where we will bring together purchasing agents from the larger companies to connect with smaller businesses. Visit the Chamber website for more details. This has been Your Business Matters. I'm Tom Snell. For more information about White Bear Area Chamber of Commerce events, go to our site hyperlink http://www.whitebearchamber.com.
You've been watching Your Business Matters. For more information on this program or the White Bear Area Chamber, visit www.whitebearchamber.com or call 651-429-8593.